White guilt.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so then we hear this a lot, like tried, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Try. Give me 5 things.
Ooh, 5 things.
5 things.
Start the countdown. All right, I think one of them.
Okay.
Meet black people. Like, talk to black people. And not about black stuff, right?
Right.
I think anyone who's listening to this, if you have one black friend, that's not enough. Oh, I got a black friend, I talk to that guy. That's not it, right? Hang out with black people. And again, if you have to say, hey, I wanted to talk to you. I don't have a lot of black friends, but I don't want to talk about black stuff. I want to talk to you about sports.
Right.
Then talk about sports, right? Talk about a book that you guys are reading together or whatever, right? Just talk, because I'm not going to be able to give credit for it. There was a show that I watched that a racist Southern white guy, I don't remember if he was in the Klan or not. And I also don't know 100% whether this was real or one of those staged reality TV shows, but I think it was real. Anyway, they were like, hey, can we get this black family to stay with you? Like, we know you don't like black people, we just want to like film it or whatever, right? And so they let this black guy believe in his wife, I think, like live with this guy for a month. That was the idea. Like, you guys live together, and by the end of it, this guy totally changed his ways. He and the black husband are so close, like,
oh my God,
like a huge difference, right? We hear about stories like that all the time,
right?
But it is about exposure. I think the problem for most people, it's easy to stay racist when you're not around any thought that you have, whatever it is. Racism, politics, food. It's easy to keep your opinion when you're never, ever around the thing you have an opinion on. Right? So that would be number one, and I think probably the biggest.
Right.
I think probably 5 things. I think the second is date outside your race. Do that. Even
if
it's
you're married.
Well, it's too late for you, probably.
I just tell my husband I got a date.
Like, you know what? Hey, Geraud said I got a date outside my race, and then you just go on out there, right? But I think that's a big part of it. There would be a lot of insight from just that by itself. So if you're single, date outside your race. In fact, try all the things. Date all day long.
Date all day long. That is the cure.
That's the cure for the
everything.
World. Just date all day long. 5 things people are writing in like, why didn't he say this?
Well, he can tell us. Add to his 5 things.
Add to the 5 things, or so far the 2 things.
Right.
I think one of the other things is, so again, the learning. So the history of. All right, let's get gross, horrible, right? So.
Okay.
My wife's white. I took an African American studies class. My white godson is going through this right now, and he called me. He was like, I was really having some trouble not hating white people right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly where you are, right? So I took this class, came home, was talking about, oh my God, the things that white people do, and like I'm mad. And she was like, yeah, I know, like, it's terrible. I was like, no, it's way worse. Like, you've heard some stories, but you don't know. And she's like, yeah, but I mean, like, that's horrible, but I feel like this reaction is a little big. I was like, you don't know, right? And I started telling some of the stories. For example, even just here in North Carolina, you might want to turn it off at this point. There was a carnival game at the fair where they would get little black kids, babies in particular. White people just threw rocks at them. That was the game. That's the game. Just throwing rocks at a little black kid on stage.
Oh my God!
It's a thing. It was a little fun times at the carnival, right? And people don't know that, right? People right now are hearing that and they're like, ugh, that's like 2 carnivals. I bet how terrible that is. That's carnivals everywhere, right? People in North Carolina still don't know that Wilmington, North Carolina, was a black city at one point until it got burned to the ground because white people were mad about it, right? Not knowing about Black Wall Street in Durham, right? So I think one of the other things is to learn real black history and to try to find those sources and to sit in it, because there is some horrific stuff done. And this is for everything, right? I think when we talk about the Jewish people in Nazi Germany, we can hear those stories and they're terrible, but the truth is they're way worse than things we've seen on Schindler's List. Like, it's nothing, right?
Right.
And during Desert Storm, the things that were done to the Kuwaiti people. Like, so I think what happens is we get this, like, oh, things are bad, and then we stop there. And I think if you could ever really see how horrific some of that stuff was, there would be a lot more acceptance of, like, oh, all right, now I get it. Like, I see why you're mad. I see why this is generational anger, right?
Right.
So I just learning is a big part of it. I think the other part of trying is, I think I'm on 4. We're getting there.
He is. He's
right?
on 4.
Yeah. I think it's to talk about that trying. So anything done in a silo, it's not that it doesn't count, right? You're learning, you're figuring stuff out, you're doing the thing. But I think letting people know. Now, this will get some controversy, right? Because we make fun of, no one in the history of mankind has ever run a marathon without having to put it on Facebook, right? Like, there's that sort of thinking. But I still say that if you're doing that sort of work, letting people know that you're doing that work matters. It is important for me to know that you are trying, as opposed to you just keeping it to yourself, right? Because one of my friends asked about the Black Lives Matter and the squares that we had on Instagram, just a little black square for your thing. And she was very upset. Like, why? Like, I feel like doing that is just belittling. Like, what's that doing for anyone? And I said, yeah, I totally get that point of view, 100%. I do, and I'm not saying you need to run off and do it. But what it does do is it lets me know that you're an active ally, right? And that it's not that everyone's gotta, and you're right, you put in your little black squares, not changing the world, maybe. But it does let me know that you're willing to say, verbally and publicly, this is where I stand. And just knowing that there's that safe place for me, knowing that you're trying, and that when I am having a rough day and I'm like, fucking white people, Melissa, can I talk to you about, right? I know that you're not going to be like, it's okay, buddy, that you're really going to talk to me about it, because I know that you care about this. So I think just making it known. I'm not saying you got to post it all over Facebook all the damn time, but I think just, particularly black people that or white people going the other way that should know that this is a thing that you're trying.
Yeah.
And lastly, the big 5, right? Talk to whatever your racial group is, or sexual group, or religious group, or whatever, because I think there's one thing for white people to come to me and talk about how much they understand my plight and how much they want to help and what can we do. Go talk to your racist white friends about it. Like, they need to hear from you that their is silly, right? Because I think, there's one thing to, you hear this a lot, right? In not just racial things, but in lots of stuff, work, money, out in the public, I will say these things, but then when I get around my friends, like, we don't want to have to talk about that stuff. You should talk about it. And so I think that you being a voice, I guess, for your own group, you're more likely to you can be way better at convincing them than I could be. And the same, right? If I said to my black friends, hey, you know what, I got some white friends that are really working at this. They're like, oh yeah, who? And but if you walk in there and like, hey, black guys, I'm really working on they're like, whatever. Right. So yeah, I think go talk to your people to be an advocate internally, not just externally.
Do you get rid of those people, or do you keep them in your lives and you continue the conversation, because just getting rid of them doesn't change their mind?